The rope cut into her wrists long before the cold reached her bones. It was still early. The sun had not yet climbed over the jagged line of the mountains, but the town was already awake. Men stood in a loose circle, boots grinding into frozen dirt, breath rising in pale clouds. No one spoke. They did not need to. In the center she knelt. Eliza's hair hung in tangled strands over her face, half frozen, where melted snow had clung and hardened again. Her dress, once a soft pale blue, was now torn and stiff with dirt and blood. One sleeve had been ripped clean off. The skin beneath it was purple-yellow and split in places that had never properly healed. A hand yanked her upright. She staggered, nearly falling again, but the rope tightened around her wrists, forcing her to stand. Her legs trembled beneath her. She had not eaten since the night before, maybe longer. Time had stopped meaning anything to her. The man who held the rope smirked, enjoying the way she struggled to stay upright. Behind him, standing higher than the rest on the wooden steps of the main house, Caldwell watched. He did not look angry. He looked bored. That was always worse. 3 years had worn that expression into his face, the quiet certainty that nothing in this town could ever touch him. Not the law, not the men who owed him their land, not the women who lowered their eyes when he passed, and certainly not her. "She's slower today," one of the men muttered. A few chuckles followed. Not loud, just enough. Caldwell stepped forward, boots creaking against the old wood. He rested one hand on the railing and looked down at her as if inspecting damaged goods. 3 years, he said, his voice calm, almost thoughtful. "You'd think by now she'd have learned." Eliza said nothing. Her lips were even breathing hurt. The man holding her rope gave it a sharp tug, forcing her head up. Her eyes met Caldwell's for a moment, before she quickly dropped them again. Not out of submission. Not anymore. Out of instinct. "You remember what happens when you disappoint me," Caldwell continued. He did not raise his voice. He never needed to. A nod. Barely visible. It was enough. The first strike came without warning. A fist slammed into her side, driving the air from her lungs. She folded, but the rope held her up. Another blow followed, then another. Each one landed with a dull, heavy sound, like something being broken slowly, piece by piece. The men watched. Some shifted uncomfortably. Most did not. A woman at the edge of the crowd turned her face away. No one stepped forward. No one ever did. Eliza's knees finally gave out. She dropped her weight, pulling against the rope until her shoulders screamed. A low sound escaped her throat, not quite a cry, not quite a breath. "Enough," Caldwell said. The blows stopped. Silence settled again, thick and heavy. He descended the steps, each movement unhurried. When he reached her, he crouched, gripping her chin and forcing her face up. His fingers pressed into bruised skin, leaving new marks over old ones. "You belong to me," he said quietly. "Every breath, every step, every mistake." His thumb wiped at the blood on her lip, smearing it across her cheek. "And I decide when it ends." He released her, and she collapsed fully onto the ground. A boot nudged her shoulder. "Get up." She did not move. The rope tightened again. Pain shot through her arms as she was dragged a few inches across the frozen dirt. Then it stopped, not because she had risen, because something else had. A sound. Wood striking wood. Every head turned toward the saloon. The door had swung open, hitting the wall hard enough to echo across the square. For a moment, no one stepped out, only darkness inside. Then he appeared. He filled the doorway without trying. Broad shoulders wrapped in a heavy fur coat dusted with snow. A beard thick and untrimmed, shadowing a face carved by weather and time. His boots were worn cracked from miles of mountain trails. A rifle rested against his back, the strap cutting across his chest. But it was his eyes that stopped the whispers before they could begin. Cold. Still. Watching. He did not look at the crowd. He looked at her. Eliza felt it before she saw it. That shift in the air. The way the space around her seemed to tighten, as if something had stepped into it that did not belong to the rules of this place. Slowly, painfully, she lifted her head. Their eyes met. There was no pity in his gaze. No shock, just something heavy. Something that had seen this before. Maybe worse. The man holding the rope frowned, glancing between Caldwell and the stranger. "You lost!" he called out, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. No answer. The mountain man took one step forward. Snow fell from his coat as he moved. Another step. The crowd shifted, boots scraping, creating space without meaning to. Caldwell straightened, his expression tightening just enough to notice. "This is private business," he said, his voice sharper now. "Turn around and walk away." The man did not stop. Each step was slow, measured, as if distance meant nothing to him, as if time itself moved differently where he stood. The rope jerked again as Eliza was forced upright, dragged to her knees. "Hey," the handler snapped louder now. "You deaf!" The mountain man's gaze flicked to him for the first time. It lasted less than a second, but the man flinched. Something in that look reached him before he could understand it. "Last warning," Caldwell said. Still no answer. The mountain man closed the remaining distance until he stood just a few feet away. Up close, he seemed even larger. Not just in size, but in presence. Like a storm that had taken human shape. He looked down at Eliza again. Her breathing was shallow, her body barely holding itself together. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the handler pulled the rope again, impatient. "Move." The mountain man's hand moved. Fast. Too fast for anyone to react. It closed around the handler's wrist. There was a sharp, wet crack. The man screamed. The rope fell from his hand as his body dropped with it, clutching his arm, his voice rising in panicked, broken cries. Silence followed. Heavy. Absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. The mountain man released the broken wrist and let it fall. He did not look at the man again. His attention returned to Eliza. Without a word, he reached down. His hands were rough, scarred. But when they touched her, they did not hurt. He cut the rope. It fell away from her wrists, leaving deep red marks where it had dug in. For a second, she did not understand. Then her arms dropped to her sides, useless, trembling. The mountain man shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. The weight of it nearly pulled her forward, but his hand steadied her firm and unyielding. Warmth. Faint, but real. The first she had felt in a long time. Behind them, Caldwell's voice broke through the silence. "Stop." It carried something new now. Not fear, but something close. "You think you can just walk in here and take what's mine?" The mountain man did not turn. He bent slightly, lifting Eliza as if she weighed nothing. Her head fell against his chest. She did not resist. She did not have the strength to. "Put her down," Caldwell said louder now, "or you won't make it out of this town alive." At that, the mountain man finally looked up, not at Caldwell, at the men standing behind him. One by one, their eyes met his, and one by one, they looked away. The message passed without words. This was not something they wanted to be part of. Caldwell saw it too. His jaw tightened. "Fine," he snapped. "Do it yourself." 3 men stepped forward, hesitant but obeying. They reached for their weapons. The mountain man shifted his grip on Eliza, moving her slightly to one side. His other hand dropped. Then the first man barely had time to react. A single strike. Clean. Precise. He hit the ground before he could even cry out. The second lunge slower, unsure. The mountain man stepped into him, driving him back with a force that knocked the air from his lungs. Another movement. Another fall. The third stopped. For a moment he stood there, caught between fear and loyalty. Then he turned and walked away. No one stopped him. No one followed. The mountain man stood alone now, Eliza in his arms, surrounded by a crowd that no longer felt like a crowd. More like witnesses. Caldwell said nothing. He simply watched. And for the first time in 3 years, something in his expression had changed. Not anger, not boredom, something else. The mountain man turned, without hurry, without hesitation, and walked away from the square. No one moved to stop him. The town remained silent as he disappeared into the falling snow, carrying her with him. And just like that, the place that had held her for 3 years let her go. The mountain path climbed without mercy. Each step sank into snow that had hardened and softened 100 times over the winter, shifting beneath his weight, but never slowing him. The wind cut through the trees in long, low howls, carrying the scent of pine ice and something older. He did not rush, even with her in his arms. Even with the cold biting deeper, the higher they went. Eliza drifted in and out of awareness. Sometimes she felt the rhythm of his steps, steady and unbroken. Sometimes she felt nothing at all. Once her eyes opened, she saw only gray sky through branches heavy with snow, and the outline of his jaw above her unmoving set like stone. Then darkness again. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun had begun to fall. It stood alone, tucked into a clearing carved out of the forest. Rough logs stacked and sealed against the cold smoke barely visible from a narrow chimney. No tracks around it but his. He kicked the door open with his boot and stepped inside. Warmth hit her first, not strong. Not enough to chase the cold from her bones, but real. He crossed the room in a few strides and lowered her onto a narrow bed near the fire. The mattress creaked beneath her weight, thin, but softer than anything she had felt in years. For a moment he stood there, looking at her, not searching for something, just taking in what remained. Then he moved. A pot was lifted from the edge of the fire. Water poured into a basin. Cloth torn from an old shirt. He worked without hesitation, without asking. The first touch made her flinch. His hand paused instantly, not pulling away, not forcing forward, just waiting. Her breath came in shallow bursts, eyes wide with instinctive fear. He did not speak, did not try to calm her with words. Slowly, carefully, he set the cloth aside, letting her see every movement. Then, just as slowly, he reached again. This time, when his hand touched her arm, it did not grip. It supported. The difference was small, but it was enough. Her body did not pull away. The cloth came next. Warm water ran over skin that had not known care in too long. Dirt lifted. Blood softened and wiped away. Each movement was deliberate, controlled, as if he were working with something fragile that could break if handled wrong. She hissed when he reached a deeper wound along her side. His jaw tightened, but his hands did not stop. Bandages followed. Clean, wrapped firm, but not tight. When it was done, he pulled a blanket over her and stepped back. Space, always space. He turned to the fire, feeding it. More wood, coaxing it higher, until the room began to breathe with heat. The shadows on the walls flickered and shifted, dancing over the rough beams above. A small bowl appeared in his hand. He crouched beside her again, holding it out. Steam rose from it. She stared at it, then at him, waiting for something, a trick, a strike, a command. None came. He lifted the spoon himself, dipping it into the broth and bringing it close. Not forcing, just offering. Her lips parted slowly. The first swallow burned all the way down. She coughed, choking on it, unused to the feeling. He waited, then tried again. One spoon, then another, until the bowl was empty. Night settled fully outside. The wind picked up, pressing against the walls in long, drawn-out breaths. He stood moving to the far side of the room. A second bed, crude, built from the same wood as everything else. He did not lie in it. Instead, he dragged a chair closer to the door and sat, back straight, eyes on the entrance. A knife rested in his hand blade, angled away. Not toward her, toward anything that might come through that door. Eliza watched him from beneath the blanket. Every movement of his body was controlled, measured, as if violence was something he carried, not something he lost control of. At some point, her eyes closed. For the first time in 3 years, she slept without waking to pain. The storm came the next night. It started as a low rumble in the distance. Then the wind shifted, rising building until it slammed into the cabin with a force that made the walls groan. Snow drove sideways, rattling against the wood, like handfuls of gravel. Eliza woke with a gasp. The room shook. The fire had dimmed, casting long, unstable shadows. The door shuddered in its frame. Another gust hit. Harder. She pulled the blanket tighter, her breath quickening, panic rising before she could stop it. The sound of the storm wrapped around her, closing in, pressing against her ears, until it felt like the world outside was trying to tear its way in. Then he was there, not close, but between her and the door. He had already moved, his body braced against the wood, one hand gripping the frame, the other pressing flat against the door as it bucked under the wind. Muscles strained beneath the weight of his coat, holding the line where the cabin met the storm. The hinges screamed. Another impact. The latch cracked slightly. He shifted, driving his shoulder into it, reinforcing it with his own weight. Snow forced its way through the gaps, swirling into the room in thin white streams. Hours passed like that. The storm did not ease. It grew, each gust stronger than the last, each one threatening to break through. He did not move from his position, did not step back, did not falter. Eliza watched her fear slowly changing shape. Not gone, but different. Each time the door shook, he held. Each time the wind pushed, he pushed back, until the storm was no longer something coming for her. It was something he stood against. At some point, her breathing slowed. Her grip on the blanket loosened. Her eyes closed again, even as the storm still raged. Morning came quietly. The wind had died. The world outside lay buried under fresh snow, untouched, silent. The cabin still stood. The door still held. And he was still there, one hand resting against the woodhead, slightly lowered, as if he had not moved at all. Days turned into weeks. The rhythm of the cabin settled into something steady. He left at dawn, returning before dark. Wood stacked higher, tracks appearing and disappearing in the snow. He spoke little, only what was needed: food, water, rest. Eliza began to move on her own, slow at first, each step careful, uncertain. She kept her distance, always watching him, waiting for something to change. It did not. He did not raise his voice, did not reach for her unless it was to help, did not touch her without pause, without letting her see it coming. Trust did not come quickly. It came in fragments, in the way he set the knife down before approaching, in the way he turned his back when she changed, in the way he slept near the door, never blocking her path. Then one morning, everything broke. She had been standing near the window looking out at the trees when it hit her. A wave of nausea. Sharp, sudden. She doubled over, gripping the edge of the table. He noticed instantly. Crossed the room in 2 strides. His hand hovered near her shoulder, not touching yet. "Sit," he said. The first word he had spoken that day. She shook her head, trying to steady herself. Another wave came. Stronger. Her legs gave out. And this time, he caught her before she hit the floor. She struggled in his grip. Not against him. Against something else. Her breathing turned ragged. Uneven. "No," she whispered. He held her still firm, but not forceful. What he asked. Her eyes filled unfocused. "I can't," she said, shaking her head. "I can't do that again." He did not understand. Not yet. But he stayed where he was, waiting, letting her speak. "It's been months," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought it was gone. I thought..." Her words collapsed into silence. Then the realization settled fully. Her hand moved, pressing against her stomach. His gaze followed. And in that moment, everything shifted. The past did not need to be spoken. It was there, in the way she shook, in the way she tried to pull away from her own body. "No," she said again, stronger now, panic rising. I won't keep it." She tried to push past him. He did not let her, not with force, with presence. He stepped in front of her, blocking the way. Her hands struck his chest, weak but desperate. "Move," she said. He did not. Her strikes slowed, then stopped. Her body sagged, and for the first time since he had found her, she broke. Not from pain, from something deeper. He caught her as she fell against him, her weight pressing into his chest, her hands gripping his coat as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "I can't," she whispered into the fabric. His arms came up around her, slowly, carefully, holding her there. Not restraining, not controlling, just holding. His voice was low when he spoke, steady. The child didn't do this. She stilled. The words settled between them, heavy, real. It didn't choose any of it. He continued. "Same as you." Silence followed, long. Then her grip tightened slightly, not pushing him away, holding on. Outside, the wind moved softly through the trees. Inside, something that had been broken for a long time shifted, not fixed, not healed, but no longer alone. Snow melted slower in the mountains. Even as the lower valleys began to soften, even as the rivers broke free from their frozen silence, the peaks held on. Cold lingered in the shadows. Wind still carried teeth. Inside the cabin, Life had begun to take shape in quiet ways. A second chair by the fire, a small cradle carved from rough wood, unfinished, but sturdy. Blankets folded with care, placed within reach. Movements that once carried only survival now carried purpose. Eliza moved differently. Not free, not yet, but steadier. Her hands no longer shook when she worked. Her steps no longer faltered with every turn. And sometimes when she thought he was not looking, she would pause by the window and simply breathe. The child grew inside her. Each passing day made it more real. And with that reality came fear. Not loud, not breaking, but constant. Elias saw it. He said nothing. He only built more, prepared more, stayed closer. It was enough, until it wasn't. The first sign came with the tracks. Fresh, too clean to be old, too deliberate to belong to any animal. Elias found them just beyond the tree line at dawn. Boots, several men, moving in formation, not lost, not wandering, hunting. He crouched low, fingers brushing against the edge of a print. The snow around it was still soft, barely settled. Hours at most. His gaze lifted toward the horizon, toward the distant ridge that led down to the town. They had come. He rose without a sound and turned back toward the cabin. Inside, Eliza stood near the fire, one hand resting lightly against her stomach. She looked up as the door opened, reading his face before he spoke. Something had changed. The air around him had shifted. Tighter. Colder. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low. He closed the door behind him, sliding the bar into place. "Tracks," he said. That was all. But it was enough. Her breath caught. How many enough? Silence fell between them. Outside, the forest stood still. Too still. He moved quickly now. Not rushed. Focused. Rifle checked. Ammunition laid out. Knife sharpened with slow, deliberate strokes. Each sound in the cabin carried weight. Eliza watched him, her body already beginning to tense. "They'll find us," she said. It was not a question. Elias did not answer. He did not need to. He walked to the window, pulling back the edge of the cloth that covered it just enough to see out. The trees stretched out, endless and quiet, but not empty. Not anymore. "They won't stop," she continued, her voice tightening. "He won't let them stop." Caldwell. Even here his shadow reached. Elias let the cloth fall back into place. "They won't take you," he said. Simple. Certain. She turned toward him, something sharp rising behind her eyes. "You don't know that," she said. "You don't know what he'll do." He looked at her then. Really looked. At the fear she was trying to hold back. At the weight she carried that had nothing to do with the child. "I know enough," he said. Footsteps. Faint. Far. But there. Elias's head tilted slightly, catching the sound before it grew louder. Then what? Low. Controlled. Moving through the trees. They were close. Too close. Eliza stepped back instinctively, her hand tightening against her stomach. Elias moved to her, placing himself between her and the door. Always the same position. Always the same line. A knock came. Not polite. Not patient. The door shook under the impact. "Open up," a voice called out. "We know you're in there." Eliza's breath stopped. Elias did not move. Another hit. Harder. Last chance, the voice continued louder now. "You're harboring property that doesn't belong to you." Property. The word cut deeper than anything. Eliza closed her eyes. Elias's hand tightened slightly on the rifle. "Walk away," he said. His voice carried through the wood low and steady. Outside, a short laugh answered him. "You think this is a negotiation?" More footsteps circled the cabin now, surrounding it. No gaps, no escape. "We're taking her," the voice said. "One way or another." Elias shifted his stance. The weight of the moment settled fully. There would be no more warnings. The door shuddered again under another strike. Wood began to splinter. Elias stepped forward. Eliza reached for him, just for a second. Her fingers brushed against his sleeve. He stopped, turned slightly. She did not speak. She did not need to. Everything she could not say was there. Fear, trust, the fragile thread that had formed between them. He nodded once, then faced the door. It broke on the next hit. Wood cracked inward pieces, splintering across the floor as the first man forced his way through. The rifle fired. The sound exploded in the small space, deafening. The man dropped instantly. The second tried to push past him. Another shot. Another fall. Smoke filled the air. Shouts rose outside. They rushed the door now, no longer cautious. Elias moved like something pulled from the storm itself. Fast, precise. Each movement carried purpose. Each strike ended something. A blade flashed. A body hit the ground. Another man lunged from the side, breaking through the wall, where the wood had weakened. Elias turned, catching him mid-motion, driving him back with a force that crushed the breath from his lungs. The fight did not last long. It never did with men like him. But numbers mattered. More came. From the sides. From behind. From places where the cabin could not hold them out. Eliza backed into the far corner, clutching the edge of the table, her body shaking as the chaos unfolded in front of her. Blood hit the floor. Boots slipped in it. The air turned thick with smoke and iron. Elias took a hit. A blade caught his side, slicing through coat and flesh. He did not stop, did not even slow. But the wound was there, and more men saw it. They pressed harder, faster, overwhelming. Then a voice cut through it all. Enough. Everything stopped. Not because of Elias. Because of him. Caldwell stepped into the doorway, brushing past the men who had forced their way inside. His coat was clean. His boots untouched by the mess on the floor. His eyes went first to Eliza, then to Elias, and something dark settled behind them. "Well," he said quietly, "looks like you've made yourself quite at home." Elias stood between them, bleeding, unmoving. Caldwell smiled slightly. "I gave you a chance," he continued. "Back in town. Could have walked away." His gaze flicked down to the bodies on the floor. "Now look at this." He sighed as if disappointed, then stepped further inside. "Take her," he said without raising his voice. The men hesitated, not because they didn't want to obey, because of who stood in front of them. Elias shifted his weight. Ready, even now. Caldwell watched him for a moment longer. Then something changed. Recognition. A flicker. Small, but real. His head tilted slightly. "Wait," he said. The room held still again. Caldwell stepped closer, studying Elias's face beneath the blood and shadow. "I've seen you before," he said. No answer. Caldwell's eyes narrowed, then widened just slightly. Understanding settled in. Slow. Cold. "Well, I'll be damned," he whispered. The name did not need to be spoken aloud, but it hung there anyway. "You're the one they used to send when things got Complicated. A few of the men shifted behind him, unease spreading through them. Caldwell let out a low breath, something between a laugh and a realization. I heard stories, he continued. Figured they were exaggerated. His smile faded. Guess not. Elias said nothing. He did not need to defend what he was. Caldwell's gaze hardened again. But stories also said you disappeared, added. Walked away after your little tragedy. His eyes flicked toward Eliza, then back. Funny how things come full circle. A pause, then quieter. I suppose this is personal for you. That was the mistake, the assumption. Elias's grip on the rifle tightened, not from anger, from something deeper, something older. Caldwell saw it, and for the first time since stepping into the cabin, something like caution crossed his face. But it did not stop him. Nothing ever had. He straightened, adjusting his coat. Doesn't matter, he said. You're still just one man. His hand lifted slightly. A signal. The men behind him shifted, preparing to move again. And in that moment, everything balanced on the edge of what would come next. The signal never fully formed. Caldwell's hand had barely risen when Elias moved. Not forward. Not reckless. Sideways. A single step that shifted the line of sight between Caldwell and the men behind him. The rifle came up not to fire, but to control the space. To decide who could move and who could not. The room held its breath. Blood still dripped from Elias's side, slow and steady arc against the wood floor. He did not look at it, did not acknowledge it. His eyes stayed on Caldwell, unblinking, waiting. The first man to break was not one of Caldwell's. It was the one closest to the door. He glanced at the bodies on the ground, at the broken frame, at the way Elias stood unmoved by pain, unmoved by numbers. Then he stepped back. Just one step. But it was enough. Another followed. Not running. Not yet. Just not stepping forward. Caldwell saw it. His jaw tightened. Move, he snapped. No one did. The weight in the room shifted. Power once certain began to fracture. Elias took one step forward, then another. Slow. Measured. Each movement pushing the line closer to Caldwell. You don't walk out of this. Caldwell said louder now, trying to force control back into his voice. You hear me? You don't get to take what's mine and just... Elias stopped. Close enough now that the space between them felt thin. Not yours, he said. 3 words. Flat. Final. Caldwell's expression twisted anger, finally breaking through the surface. You think the law will side with you? He shot back. You think anyone out there cares what happens in this place? Elias did not answer. He lowered the rifle slightly. Not in surrender, in certainty. Then he moved again. Faster this time. Caldwell reached for his weapon, but he was too slow. Elias's hand closed around his wrist, stopping the motion before it began. The grip tightened, forcing the weapon free, sending it clattering across the floor. Caldwell tried to pull back. He couldn't. The strength in Elias's grip was absolute. Let go. Caldwell said, his voice dropping, something else slipping in now. Not anger. Fear. Elias did not let go. He turned, dragging Caldwell with him, forcing him toward the open doorway. Get off me, Caldwell snapped, struggling harder now. Elias did not strike him, did not break him. Not yet. He pulled him outside. Into the open. Into the light. The men followed. Not to fight. To watch. The town came into view below the slope, smoke rising from chimneys. Life continuing, as if nothing had changed. Elias did not stop there. He kept moving. Down the path, step by step, dragging Caldwell behind him. The man stumbled, was forced back to his feet again. Snow gave way to dirt, cold to something warmer. By the time they reached the edge of the town, a crowd had already begun to gather. Word traveled fast in places like this. They always remembered. Elias pulled Caldwell into the center of the square, the same place, the same ground, where Eliza had knelt, where no one had spoken, where no one had acted. Caldwell tried to stand straight now, trying to reclaim something of himself. "You don't have the authority to do this," he said louder for the crowd this time. "You think dragging me here changes anything?" Elias released his wrist. Caldwell took a step back, adjusting his coat, trying to restore the image he had worn for so long. Then Elias reached into his coat, slow, deliberate. He pulled out something wrapped in cloth, unfolded it. Papers. Old, worn, but intact. He held them out. Not to Caldwell. To the crowd. Abat stepped forward hesitantly, taking them, scanning the contents. His expression changed. Others leaned in. Whispers spread. Records. Debts. Signatures. Transfers. Proof. Not just of what Caldwell had done to Eliza, but to many. Too many. Land taken under false claims. Debts created where none existed. Names of men who had lost everything. Names of women who had vanished. The silence broke. Not loudly, but enough. Caldwell saw it happen. Felt it. The shift he had once controlled now turning against him. "You don't understand," he said quickly, trying to recover. "That's not how it—" No one answered him. No one defended him. The lawman stepped forward then. He had always been there, always watching, always silent. Until now. He took the papers, read them, looked up. At Caldwell, at Elias, at the crowd. Then he reached for the cuffs at his belt. The sound they made as they closed around Caldwell's wrists was small, but it echoed, louder than anything else that day. Caldwell did not fight. Not anymore. The certainty had left him, replaced by something hollow. He was led away, through the same crowd that had once stepped aside for him. Now, they did not move fast enough. He had to be pushed through. Elias stood where he was, watching, not satisfied, not relieved, just finished. He turned before the lawman disappeared from sight, turned away from the town, away from everything it had been, and walked back up the path. The cabin was quiet when he returned. The damage remained. Broken wood, blood, the marks of what had happened. But she was there. Eliza sat near the fire, the child in her arms, wrapped tight, safe. Her eyes lifted as he stepped inside. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she stood, slowly, carefully. The child shifted against her, small and alive. She crossed the room, stopped in front of him. Close. Closer than she had ever stood before. "You came back," she said. Her voice was steady, not the same voice that had once trembled under every word. He looked at her, at the child, at the life that had formed in the space between violence and silence. "I said I would," and answered. She nodded, a small movement. But it held everything. The fear was still there. The past was still there. But it no longer owned her. She shifted the child slightly, then extended him forward. An offering, not of burden, of trust. Elias hesitated, just for a second. Then his hands came up, carefully, as if holding something that could break with the wrong breath. The child settled into his arms, small, warm, alive. His fingers adjusted instinctively, supporting the weight securing it. The child stirred, then dilled. Eliza watched him, not with fear, not with doubt, with something new. Outside, the snow had begun to melt. Water dripped from the roof in slow, steady drops. The forest beyond the cabin stood quiet. No voices, no threats, just space, just time. Elias stepped closer to the fire, the child still in his arms. Eliza moved beside him, not behind, not apart, beside. The cabin, once a place of survival, now held something else, something that did not need words, something that did not need to be explained. A beginning. If this story kept you watching until the end, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.